You're listening to Adventures in Project Management with John Goad.
Hey everybody, John with you today with Adventures in Project Management. I'm so excited to talk to you about the topic that I have today. Not that it's I'm not excited to experience the topic, but I'm really happy to talk to you about my experience with it. So I'm talking about hard conversations. Yep, you heard me. We all have to have hard conversations, whether at home or at work or with friendships or whatnot. There is no shortage of hard conversations to be had in our lives every day. So I thought I would just kind of share with you some of the things that I implement in order to make certain that I have appropriate hard conversations. You know, we all avoid it. I do. I will again. And I hate that, but I will. And you see it in projects a lot, whether it's an architect, engineer, contractor, municipal leader, owner. The owners are famous a lot of times for doing that, but it's just human nature that we want to kind of kick that can down the road, that we want to put things off that can be difficult. And the unfortunate thing is when we do that, it only hurts ourselves or it hurts the project. There's never a good result if we put it off. And so many of us try to avoid the inevitable and just push it off. So let's not do that. In 2016, Harvard Business Review had an article. It's called, "What is Worse Than a Difficult Conversation?" Well, I'll tell you the short answer. Short answer is, what's worse than having a difficult conversation? Not having one. That's what's worse. The author, Deborah Rowland, says that we've got to have a mindset shift from looking at hard conversations as hurdles and really focusing on the hard conversations as being an opportunity, or what did she put it? Yeah, just basically a resource to build trust amongst a team or one another. And I thought, I had to think about that a little bit, but you know what? It's really true. If we can change our mindset going into a hard conversation, it's going to make it a whole lot better. It really is. So my takeaway from the article and from life, again, I'll reiterate, it's don't kick the can down the road. My brother-in-law has kind of a funny saying. He says, you got to face your demons because they'll just get bigger if you wait. And it's true. So it reminds me a little story. When I was first married, my wife and I decided that we needed to trade in the truck that I had, my pickup truck. And it was a 1990 F-250. And, you know, I had a lot of miles on it. I kept it for a long time. It was a great truck, but, you know, I needed something a little newer. And so we found a newer vehicle, a newer truck that wasn't brand new, but it was newer. And so we went to the dealership and, you know, kind of went through that whole painful process of, sorry to any auto salespeople out there, but, you know, at the time, I mean, I don't really like to buy vehicles like this any longer, but, you know, you go there and you find your sales guy or gal, whatever, and ours was a sales guy, and he's like, you know, led us to this truck, and it worked out. We sat there through, you know, a lot of paperwork, and then he had to take all of our paperwork and go up to the guys in the tower, whatever that is. And that's just like this glassed in area. It's like 2 steps higher than the rest of us were sitting, you know, and I don't know what those guys do back there, but they're all leaning back in their chairs, looking at their, you know, computer monitors, and I think they're watching football or doing something. I have no idea, but part of it is just a lot of waiting. You know, you've been there. Everybody's done that. Well, so we're there until, you know, late into the night. I mean, it was like our sales guy and a couple guys in the tower, and that was it. And it was dark outside. It was late. We were tired. We hadn't eaten. And so we signed the paperwork, wrote a check, that kind of a deal, and went home in our newer truck. Well, that evening, I was still a young project manager, and I was really wanting to pay attention. You know, I still do, but, you know, I would have gone to bed these days. But at the time, I stayed up and I just looked through the paperwork. I just wanted to make sure that I understood what I signed up for. And as I was leafing through the folder of all the material that they had given me, I noticed that there was this little yellow, like receipt looking thing. And I opened it up and I looked at it. And it was a vehicle mileage affidavit. And it said, you know, the undersigned hereby, you know, verifies that this vehicle has no more than 100,000 miles on it. And then oddly enough, my signature was right behind or right down, from that statement. And I thought, wow, I kind of don't remember signing this. But what was worse was I knew that there was so many more miles than 100. There was 189,000 miles on that truck because I put every mile on it. And so I got this pit in the bottom of my stomach. And it was because I knew I had to have a hard conversation with somebody. And I didn't know, this is new territory. I'd never done this before. I'd never had to have this kind of a conversation before. And it would have negative financial impacts to me. So the first person I'd tell is my wife. And she's, well, what are you going to do? Well, what do you think I'm going to do? We're going to go to the dealership tomorrow morning. And so the next morning I got up and at the time I wear a shirt and tie for work at the time. So I put on my tie and hopped in our new truck and we drove to the dealership and I walked in and one of the guys was, I don't know, maybe he just stayed there all night. I have no idea, but poor guy had to pull early duty the next morning. And hey, are you John? I said, yeah. He said, oh, everything okay with the truck? I said, yeah, everything's great, but could I speak to the sales manager? He said, sure. So I waited a couple minutes. Sales manager came out. Hey, how you doing? I said, hey, I was going through the paperwork last night and I realized that I executed this affidavit that said, that my old truck didn't have more than 100,000 miles on it. And I know it's got 189,000 on it because I put every mile on that truck. And when I said that, a couple of other sales guys were standing, near us and they kind of started chuckling at it like, yeah, you dummy, you got away with it. What did you? Well, I knew it was the right thing to do. And I knew that, and it ended up costing me a little bit of money, not much. And it's hardly even a blip on the radar now. I just remembered it when I was preparing for this, this talk I'm giving. And so, but it was so much more difficult. The lead up to that conversation was very difficult. It caused me to stay up, at night and I was kind of rehearsing what I would say. And I was just really nervous walking in there. But then the conversation itself, once I began talking with the sales guy, it wasn't bad at all. And frankly, I'm really glad that I did that. So let's take that to the project level. So many times I've seen a project where an individual or a group will have information that could be very important for others to know, but it may reflect poorly on them or on their company or on a decision that they made or something along those lines. And so they'll withhold information. And I'm always encouraging to have the hard discussions because, like I said earlier, the longer we wait, the worse it's going to be, the more the impact, the negative impact could be, the more the cost will be. And so I think we just need to deal with hard conversations. So I have a few things that I implement in order to keep my team or to keep myself accountable for just moving forward with difficult conversations. I mean, first you have to identify a problem. So if you have information that somebody else or others need to know regarding your project that could be hard, well, you've got to just determine I have information that needs to get out there. So first you need to determine who needs to know. Is it the whole team? I have a project right now where the contractors had nothing but bad news, it seems like, with regard to materials and equipment and labor. They've been slugging it out, with the supply chain issues and things that we're seeing right now. It's just unprecedented in some of this lead times and things changing. And every time they call a vendor, it's as if something changes and they just can't commit to anything. And there's no way, I told my owner, I said, there's no way that we can even incentivize or, penalize this contractor into giving us a hard date because they just don't know. And it goes down multiple layers. I'm sure a lot of you have seen that as well. And so it's a very challenging time. But what has made it successful so far is they've been open and honest, and they determined that the entire team, including the owner, needed to know this information immediately so that we could all pull our resources and our skills and everything together as a team to pull this thing into a direction that at least is going to be manageable. We don't control it all, but we're working together as a team to help resolve it. And that's making it great. So the other thing is, when you have this information, you've discovered there's information you've got to have a hard conversation. You know who you have to have it with. timing is very important. Now, the clock starts ticking as soon as you know something, because time is not your friend when you're trying to solve a problem that's going to negatively impact your schedule or critical path or others. But it's so important for timing on when you share that information. So back to the project scenario. So our project meetings, sometimes it's not appropriate to bring bad information in front of the entire team. And that's not being deceitful by any means. What it's being smart is what it is. So maybe you want to pull one person or a couple people off aside and say, hey, could you stay after the meeting? Or can I give you a call, a follow-up call, rather than on the entire Zoom call? And what this does is, one, it helps to not catch somebody off guard. Because when I catch somebody off guard and it makes them reel back on their heels, they're going to get defensive, and they're not immediately going to think about how we can work together for a solution. They're going to think, how can I protect myself? It's just human nature. So, try to make sure that timing of when you share this information, that you think about it. Okay. That's all I'm saying. Don't hide anything. Don't drag it out. Please don't drag it out at all. Be forthright and be timely, but also think about who you're saying it in front of. Here's the next one. It's a real big one too. So many times I see if a problem is identified and it's out there amongst the team, all of a sudden the team or the group, the owner, everybody gets focused on, well, how did this happen? How did we get here? Whose fault is it? Who's going to pay for it? Well, yeah, those are all relevant questions, but those aren't necessarily the questions that need to be answered immediately. So I encourage you, rather than having your team focus on who did it and who's going to pay, there'll be time for that later. Focus instead on a solution or a workaround, or at least mitigating negative impacts right now. That's critical right now. And what I found is when a team works together to find that workaround or to, mitigate those negative impacts or to work towards a solution, those negotiations or discussions about who's at fault or who's going to pay and all that seem to just go better. You've kind of built this camaraderie of a team to work to go, punch through and get the problem solved. And when you have a solution on its way, it makes those negotiations of, who's at fault a lot better. And that's what I've seen. And so that's what I encourage you to do, to put into place these few things. So you identify the problem, you determine who needs to know. There's a timing when you're going to tell who needs to know. Don't push it off. So many times I talk to people that they just would rather have a broken arm than bring bad news. And a lot of that is just, dealt with pride. People are afraid to lose their job. They're embarrassed because they've made a mistake or, something along those lines. But I'll tell you what, just protecting your pride is not going to help you in the long run. And it's certainly not going to help your team or your owner or whomever you work for. You just got to sometimes do the hard stuff. Have that hard conversation, even if it reflects poorly on you. Because I'll tell you, others will think more of you if you're not afraid to just be honest in front of your team and say, hey, I messed up. I missed this deadline. I forgot this item. I didn't turn this in. I forgot to call so-and-so. Whatever it is. I just encourage you to be forthright. And lastly, don't focus on who's at fault. Don't focus on who started it, who didn't start it, who's going to pay. There's time for that later. Focus on the workaround, on mitigating the negative impacts that you're all going to feel, or many of the team could feel, or the project could feel, and certainly work together towards a solution. That's going to be your best bet. So that's all I got for you today. I hope that you find these helpful. I really am excited to share with you a lot of the lessons learned from my years in project management and in the construction industry. And if this has helped you, then please pass it on to somebody else. Let's help someone else as well. I'm really excited that we've got a lineup of some great guests that we're going to start to introduce into this podcast. And we'll announce those guests as we move forward. And they're not all project managers or in project management, but they're all people who have different expertise and know things that can help us not only in our work, but they can help us at home as well. And I think you're going to find some exciting things. You're going to take some great nuggets away when you start hearing these people talk. My goal is to help you do what you do better. And so let's do that. Check out our YouTube channel too. We've got that up and running. You can see all of these podcasts on video as well. And so until next time, I can't wait to talk to you next time. Have a great day, and I'll talk to you soon. All right, bye.